This is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update for August 21st, 5:30 p.m. We have a lot going on in the tropics, and this is going to be kind of a long video, but there's a lot to go over. First of all, here's the graphical tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center. We have Invest 95L in the Gulf of Mexico. This system, by all accounts, with all model data, is indicating this will move inland in Mexico and should not affect the United States, and the system should may try to develop a little bit, but it's going to move inland before long. And right now, all of our focus is going to be on Isaac right here in the middle, approaching the northern Leeward Islands, and then we have Invest 96L out in the far east Atlantic, and we have a long time to watch that one. But right now, the main focus is going to be on Isaac. Let's go ahead and look at the HurTrack program and get the animation going here and show you what's going to happen over the next few days. First of all, this will be approaching the northern Leeward Islands by tomorrow, and this system should be a somewhat strong tropical storm by around 60 miles per hour as it moves through the northern Leeward Islands. In fact, our current feature is the island of Guadeloupe. You click on Guadeloupe on the front page of Hurricane City. It'll give you all the localized information, radar, webcams, all kinds of news and information coming out of the area. But this is not going to be a real bad situation for the islands, but as this moves further west, it will become a hurricane when it's south of Puerto Rico. It looks like Puerto Rico is not going to get the full brunt of this, but they might get some gust of tropical storm force on the southern beaches as this moves quickly off to the west. And then the system continues to move just north of due west and should be approaching Hispaniola, hitting the Oviedo area and then into Haiti, and then into the Windward Passage, where this system could become a Category 2 hurricane, according to the National Hurricane Center. And then at the end of the forecast period here, it moves into southeastern Cuba as a Category 2 hurricane, and then begins the long journey over land where there's mountainous terrain in East Cuba, mountains of 5,000 to 10,000 feet. And then the questions all are, where is this going to go after that? Is this going to be a Florida system? Is this going to go into the Gulf of Mexico? Or is this going to go into the Bahamas? Well, I got a whole bunch of models to go over here and a bunch of different scenarios to unfold, but we have a lot going on. We have the Republican convention on Tuesday, which would be right about the time that this would be affecting Florida, if it's going to affect Florida. So there's a lot of things that could take place here that can throw everything in out of not just for the fact that we have a potential hurricane affecting the state of Florida, but we also have events that could be put on hold as well due to this. Let's take a look at the models on the front page of HurricaneCity.com. Now, these are right now the best performers are the aviation ensemble models. Now, these have been the best performers all year long. They've even outperformed the European model for most of the hurricane season so far. But the one model that really stands out is the aviation model number 9. And the reason I'm showing you this model, this is the red track on the front page of Hurricane City on the tracking map. And what we do is run a program. Chris from Tropical Atlantic developed a program that runs the models and figures out the best performing models over the last 24 hours. This is not the total best performing models from the beginning of the storm, but rather the best performing models over the last 24 hours. So it gives you an idea of trends and what the models are thinking. Now, the reason I'm showing you the aviation ensemble model number 9 is that this model performed absolutely brilliantly in Tropical Storm Ernesto, which became Hurricane Ernesto, and it predicted the system would go just north of the country of Belize, cross the Yucatan Peninsula, and then dip off to the southwest and come in just south of Veracruz, Mexico, which is exactly what ended up happening. So the aviation ensemble model number 9 is the best performer, and that takes it over the length of Cuba here and then right near Key West, Florida. Now, earlier this model had this system kind of going like this up here in the eastern Bahamas. So there's a trend here that maybe the models are shifting a little bit to the west. Now, disregard the one down here. This is XTRAP, and what that means is basically if you drew a straight line, that's where the system would go. But the reason XTRAP is performing the best right now is because Isaac has been pretty much going in a straight line since it developed along the 15-degree north line. So the XTRAP has been one of the best performers in 24 hours. But that is not going to pan out for the long haul here. So disregard XTRAP, but pay attention to the GFS ensemble models. Let's take a look at the close-up visible shot of our system here. And the hurricane hunters were out there, and what they found was the low-level center is exposed on the northern portion of the system, and meaning the center is right up in here somewhere, not right underneath this blob, which if that was the case, it'd strengthen rapidly. But it is on the northern edge of the convection here, and cruising generally off to the west, just north of the 15-degree line. So it's going to head in the general direction of Guadeloupe and the northern Leeward Islands as it cruises off to the west. But it's getting a little bit better organized here. There's more convection flaring up near the center, so this should go ahead and develop nicely over the next few days. Here are the hurricane hunters. They've been out flying around this afternoon, and there's our vortex message, meaning the center of the circulation located at 15.3 north and 53.8 west. And we have 1,006 pressure inside the eye, and maximum flight level winds 28 knots. But if you go out a little bit, let's go back a couple of hours here, and there you see the other vortex message from earlier was 40 knots, and that's when they decided to upgrade this to Tropical Storm Isaac, and maximum flight level winds 45 knots. And it's interesting to note that the 44 knot northeast quad is where the highest winds are. That's not surprising. But there are some higher winds down here on the south and southwest side of the system as well. We'll watch for strengthening of the system, and it should go ahead and strengthen over the next 24 to 36 hours as it approaches the northern Leeward Islands. All right, here is the European model. Now, this is the model that is historically over the past several years has really been the best model of all the global models, and this has it in the Gulf of Mexico. This has shifted west. Earlier it had it hugging the west coast of Florida coming out of the Caribbean. Now it has it going something like this and then hanging a right-hand turn further off the coast of Florida and heading up towards the northern Gulf Coast, maybe towards the Pensacola or Mobile, Alabama area. So people in the northern Gulf need to pay close attention to this too, as the models have been trending a little bit to the west, and I'll show you the best performing models in a second. But the European model here, pay close attention to the shifts in the euro. But the GFS still wants to take it over the peninsula of Florida, so we have a battle going on between the euro and the GFS, and we'll see which one pans out. Now here is the GFS model, and this is going out. Oh, by the way, that last image, that European model, that's going out Friday the 31st, so that would be late next week before this thing would be up in the northern Gulf of Mexico if the European model pans out. So all the indications are this thing is really going to slow down here in the western Caribbean Sea near the west tip of Cuba if this track were to pan out. Now on the GFS, on the other hand, this is going out to the 28th. Now this is Tuesday. This is the day of the Republican National Convention, so they would be right there in the bullseye of this thing if this track were to pan out by the GFS going into Tuesday. And the GFS has a little bit weaker here, maybe a Category 1 hurricane according to this model run. All right, here is the 24-hour GFS model showing our high pressure ridge, 1023 millibars right there. And here is Tropical Storm Isaac closing in on the northern Leeward Islands. And if we go out here 48 hours, you'll see our high pressure system shifts a little bit over here to the east at 1024 millibars, and that would allow the system to stair step a little bit and get a little bit more of a west-northwest heading. And it looks at this time, although it's not clear, but it looks like it'll pass north of Jamaica, so it's not going to pass over Jamaica, but probably north of the island. But they do need to pay close attention down there. It looks like this is going to be a Haiti, Dominican Republic, and Cuba system. As a trough is going to, well, there is a trough right there, and it's going to amplify a little bit over here and create that weakness. And again, that high pressure is going to shift over to the east and allow this system to steer step. So that's the thinking right now with the GFS model, is that the steering flow is going to break down a little bit when it gets near Haiti and East Cuba. I wanted to show you the Isaac model runs here. The best performing model so far since the very beginning when this was Invest 94L, well out in the East Atlantic, has been the Aviation Ensemble model number 13. And this takes it through Hispaniola and into the central Bahama Island chain, turning off to the north-northwest. This is the best performer, but again, keeping track of that Aviation model number 9, And that model number 9 was really good with Ernesto, and that has it going like this and into the Florida Straits right near Key West. So that's the model to keep an eye on, is the AP09 on the front page of Hurricane City. All right, here are the models that are the mouse over models on the front page of Hurricane City, and you can see a tight clustering of the models, generally between say Cienfuegos, Cuba, all the way up to Andros Island, Bahamas, or even the Canadian over here that is the further east of all these models and has been all along, and that takes it up near the Central Bahama Island chain. But we've got to pay attention to model groupings, and right now the groupings are telling us that it's going to be somewhere in this area here in about going into the beginning over the weekend, sometime over the weekend. It should be in that area. By the way, these mouse over models at Hurricane City, we're keeping track of these once every 24 hours. I take a snapshot of this, and I'm going to put that link up here in the next, probably this evening sometime, showing the model history of Isaac, and so you can see how the models have shifted over the coming days. We do this when we expect a intense or a news-making type storm to develop in the Atlantic. Keep track of the models day by day and then display them on the site so you can see how things have changed over the days. Now here's the ensemble model runs, the Weather Underground, and you can see basically a tight clustering over the state of Florida with a spread, a couple of models over here in the northern Gulf of Mexico and a couple over here in the Bahamas. But the majority of them, if you had to draw a line down the center, it would be basically the west coast of Florida. It looks like the highest risk at this time, but that is subject to change. Here are the intensity models. And the ship's model is the strongest out of the group here, having it around 90 miles per hour, close to Category 2 strength, going into 72 hours, and that would be heading into the weekend. And then it would start tangling with land, and then after that, once the system starts tangling with all those land masses, the strength goes way down, and then it would reemerge over water, probably as a tropical storm somewhere in the 50 knot to 65 knot range as it emerges north of Cuba, wherever that happens to take place. Here's the wind shear tendency map, and you can see that there's a little bit of high wind shear out in front of this, and that's because there's an upper level low here spinning northeast of the Bahamas, but that's supposed to kind of wash out over the next few days. So this wind shear should lessen a little bit out in front of this as Isaac moves off to the west. So I don't think wind shear is going to be a big problem. And we also have a lot of warm sea surface temperatures out in front of this thing too. So speaking of sea surface temperatures, let's take a look at the maps at Hurricane City with the sea surface temperatures. Oh my God, look at how warm this water is when you get over towards Cuba and you get up into the Florida Straits and the eastern Gulf of Mexico. These temperatures over here are 86 degrees plus. That's plenty of warm fuel for hurricanes, and the way the models are showing it heading in that direction, there's plenty of warm fuel down here. So if this thing could easily crank up once it clears all these land masses down here, and that's why people need to pay very close attention to what's going on with Isaac. We could have ourselves a significant hurricane heading towards the west coast of Florida, the Florida Peninsula, or even up into the Florida Panhandle before this northerly turn takes place, or as the northerly turn takes place in response to the trough in the southeast. So it looks like everywhere from the northern Gulf all the way to the Bahamas need to pay very close attention to this. It's a little too early to pinpoint this at this time, but it looks like definitely Haiti, Hispaniola, and Cuba is going to have to deal with some sort of a hurricane as we go out towards the weekend. Well, that's it for now. I'll be back with another update in a day or two as things progress with Isaac. We'll keep track of the one behind it, but right now that's not a great concern. Right now all eyes are on Tropical Storm Isaac. Again, that featured city, Guadalupe. The countdown clock is activated. Warnings are up. Everybody be prepared and pay attention to Isaac. Thank you again for visiting Hurricane City.